In the world of wildlife enthusiasts, the mustelid family has long held a well-deserved reputation as the literal asylum of the animal kingdom. If you ever decide to take a close look at their family tree, you will quickly realize that just about every second member has completely and utterly lost their mind. In this gang of desperate thugs, petty thieves, and professional brawlers, there are absolute legends. For instance, everyone has heard of the African honey badger, that exact psycho that wakes up early to attack a pride of lions, snacks on a deadly cobra for lunch, and goes to punch leopards in the face for dinner, walking away entirely unscathed. With his fearless attitude, a hide that can swallow a machete strike, and jaws capable of crushing turtle shells, the honey badger earned a terrifying reputation and became an internet legend with millions of fans worldwide. But what if we travel to another continent and look at his cousin? Trying to duplicate the lifestyle of that African relative is no easy task. Yet, the American badger, Taxidea taxus, honestly tried. Unfortunately, Mother Nature has a highly specific sense of humor. Instead of a noble, fearless samurai fighting powerful enemies with elegance, she ended up creating a psychotic, sociopathic monster with pure distilled aggression boiling inside a compact body. If you want a brief description of this creature, the formula is beautiful in its simplicity. The American badger is 99% pure, unadulterated hatred toward every living thing, and the remaining 1% is just badger fat. This is an evil, antisocial, and completely uncompromising species. Its face permanently looks like an extreme introvert the exact moment you approach them on the street to strike up a friendly conversation. As you can guess from the name, this fluffy torpedo of rage lives across almost the entire North American continent. Its domain stretches from central Canada down to the arid regions of central Mexico and from the Great Lakes in the east, all the way to sunny California in the west. Figuratively speaking, every field, meadow, prairie, or pasture in North America, excluding frozen Alaska, is at constant risk of falling under the tyrannical rule of this mustelid madman. Yet, despite this massive geographical range, our hero is incredibly picky. You will never find him in dense, deep taiga forests or swampy marshes. The badger exclusively fancies endless steppes, open prairies, and dry, semi-deserts. The primary and only real estate requirement is soft, yielding, dry soil. That is because life underground is his true native element. We are not just talking about a den dweller here. This is the most efficient, rapid, and ruthless mechanized excavator in the entire Wild West. Digging through dirt 24/7 is made possible by perfect anatomical adaptations, polished by evolution to absolute perfection. A low-slung, dense, incredibly muscular body, short legs that resemble hydraulic jacks, and, the crown jewel of this destructive setup, giant, terrifying claws measuring up to 7 centimeters long. To truly comprehend the scale of tragedy for his potential victims, look right now at your own index finger. That is roughly the kind of nails this guy uses to manicure the North American landscape. With a manicure like that, a shovel is entirely obsolete. The results of the American badger's daily labor are deeply impressive. Each of his burrows is not just a hole in the ground to escape the rain. It is a genuine, heavily fortified underground citadel. The depth of these subterranean bunkers can easily reach 3 meters, while the number of clever exits, entrances, false tunnels, and emergency escape routes is counted in the dozens. The badger plows through cubic meters of soil with such ease, it looks like he is moving light, airy souffle instead of packed, dry earth. Witnesses are particularly stunned by the sheer speed of his work. If a massive danger suddenly appears on the horizon, though the badger himself is a walking hazard, this stocky powerhouse can completely bury himself in an absolute flat field, right in front of your eyes, in just about 30 seconds flat. He literally sinks into the earth, leaving behind nothing but a fountain of flying dirt. And believe it, once the American badger has vanished into his citadel and barricaded himself from within, even a starving grizzly bear will not be able to evict him. He will dig in for a brutal defense, turning that narrow tunnel into a guaranteed kill zone for anyone foolish enough to stick their nose inside. So, we have established that as a builder and digger, this guy has no equal on the continent. But what happens if this 80-centimeter projectile of hatred fails to vanish underground within his standard 30 seconds? What if a cunning enemy catches him by surprise right in the middle of an open meadow, too far from his nearest secret bunker? A normal animal in this situation triggers its self-preservation instinct. It tucks its tail, tries to run, or whimpers for mercy. But the American badger is wired differently. The fear sector in his skull is entirely missing, while the rage toggle is cranked to maximum and permanently welded in place. If you catch a badger off guard one-on-one, you might as well buy front-row tickets to your own demise, because he will immediately start digging his 7-centimeter claws straight into your internal organs. Let us face the facts. By the standards of serious predators, his dimensions are modest. On average, this fluffy torpedo weighs between 6 and 15 kilograms, though heavily fattened pre-winter veterans can bulk up to 18 kilos. It sounds like the weight class of a medium-sized domestic dog. Yet, the amount of pure, concentrated fury packed into that frame weighs a literal ton. When facing a massive opponent face-to-face, the badger does not waste time calculating his odds. He faithfully honors the ancient wisdom of the Wild West. The best defense is an immediate, incredibly violent, and completely unhinged offense. The targets of this psychotic beast can be lonely, roaming coyotes, a coordinated, hungry pack of prairie wolves, or even a massive, multi-hundred-kilogram grizzly bear. The badger does not care about the size of his opponent. His motto is insanity and courage, and that slogan is backed by unique natural gifts that turn his body into the perfect machine for prolonged close-quarters combat. The main secret to the badger's survival against overwhelming odds lies in his phenomenal skin, which is half a centimeter thick. For comparison, an adult human's toughest skin on their soles and palms barely reaches 3 millimeters. This fluffy kamikaze has a half-centimeter layer of heavy-duty armor covering his entire body, protecting him from deep punctures, sharp claws, and fangs. But nature went even further. The hide of the American badger is not just tough. It is incredibly elastic. It hangs off him in loose, heavy folds, looking like a baggy suit bought 3 sizes too big from a thrift store. This exact anatomical feature makes him virtually immune to being pinned down. Grabbing, holding, and immobilizing this animal is practically impossible. If a large wolf or coyote manages to bite the badger by the scruff of his neck, the badger can effortlessly twist 180 degrees inside his own skin. Once turned around, this spiteful demon instantly sinks his powerful jaws and 7-centimeter claws into the softest, most sensitive spots of the attacker: their eyes, their wet nose, and their tender ears. Most North American predators who make the mistake of attacking a badger just once receive such massive shock and unforgettable pain that they choose to never mess with this screaming, raging psycho ever again. Only wolves, lynxes, and bears, whose minds have been completely unhinged by desperate winter starvation, will ever try to challenge his right to live, and they rarely succeed. The only predator in North America capable of hunting the American badger with any regular efficiency is the cougar. But the mountain lion only pulls this off through a sneaky tactic. She attacks from behind from a deep ambush, executing a lightning-fast, suffocating hold before the badger can notice the threat, spin around inside his skin, and slap the big cat across the face for trespassing against his royal badger majesty. If claws, teeth, and a bulletproof hide are not enough to deter an enemy, our psycho has one more ace up his sleeve, or rather, under his tail. In cases of extreme danger, the badger initiates chemical warfare. His musk glands begin producing and spraying a foul odor so suffocating and concentrated that attacking predators instantly suffer from tearing eyes, gasping breath, and a completely destroyed sense of smell. It is a literal gas attack that turns the immediate radius into a localized branch of hell. Back in the past centuries, dog hunting for badgers was highly popular among colonists. It was seen as an exciting sport because matching hounds against such an aggressive, inventive, and ferocious beast provided intense entertainment for the crowds. Granted, for most dogs, this little game ended with deep physical scars and lifelong psychological trauma. If you are walking through the prairie and suddenly run into an American badger that squares up, begins to hiss, scream, spray saliva, and charge with foam at his mouth, your only salvation is immediate, humiliating retreat. He will keep up this insane show until you change your mind and get far away from his territory. Another wonderful and highly dangerous trait of these animals is that, due to their nomadic and aggressive lifestyle, they easily catch rabies and spread it around with equal ease. So keep your distance. Seriously, leave him alone. As long as the badger does not feel a direct threat to his precious self or his underground fortress, you are generally safe. In fact, this fluffy sociopath genuinely wants to stay as far away from any living thing as possible, including humans. He emerges from his burrow, mostly under the cover of night, driven solely by the savage necessity to find something to eat. When it comes to prey, this furry bandit does not play nice. His culinary adventures are less of a hunt and more of a methodical, total cleansing of the territory from anything that moves, crawls, or has roots. His body burns calories at the rate of a heavy diesel excavator chugging fuel. High-speed digging of multi-meter tunnels takes a toll, meaning that to maintain his strength, the badger must eat constantly, without stopping. On the surface, this devil snaps up anything his short paws can reach: snakes, including venomous rattlesnakes, toads, lizards, bird eggs, and the birds themselves, if they are dumb enough to sleep on the ground. Even a farmer's crop of peas, beans, or corn can be heavily damaged if the badger shows up in a foul mood. But the real drama unfolds when the victim tries to find safety underground, hoping to outsit the danger in your deep little burrow. Futile. The badger will extract you from beneath the toughest soil. Mice, gophers, and prairie dogs form the golden foundation of his daily diet. And here, the badger demonstrates not just animal brutality, but genuine tactical genius. To prevent terrified prey from escaping through emergency exits, this clever bastard walks around the area before tearing the underground home to shreds. He plugs every single exit of the target burrow with rocks, heavy sticks, and chunks of mud. The doomed rodents stand zero chance. The badger hates wasting time on high adrenaline chases, so he simply, methodically digs out his victims like a farmer harvesting potatoes in autumn. They do not even have time to realize what happened before they are down his throat. The badger's excavation tactics follow a strict three-step process. First, reconnaissance, where he locates the rodent nest. Second, blockage, where he seals all escape routes. Third, excavation, where he tears open the burrow with his claws, destroying the shelter entirely. Anything the American badger cannot finish in one sitting is never left behind for the vultures. The prize is carefully and thoroughly buried for later. And these improvised canned goods are not limited to tiny hamsters and gophers. The sheer power of this beast is enough to bury an entire cow. This particular true story once deeply amused the scientific community. A group of wildlife biologists decided to run an experiment in the prairies. They placed a large carcass of a fallen calf right in front of a hidden camera trap. The naive researchers hoped to observe the behavior of vultures, coyotes, and other scavengers to gather clean data. But the American badger did not care about their research grants or human plans. During the night, this furry nightstand of a mammal waddled past. Noticing dozens of kilograms of unmonitored beef, the badger realized Lady Luck was smiling upon him. Instead of just chewing off a piece, the beast started digging. He buried the calf so quickly and thoroughly that when the biologists arrived in the morning, they could not comprehend what had happened. Where did a massive carcass disappear to? No drag marks, no signs of a scavenger feast, just flat, empty ground. They only solved the mystery after reviewing the camera footage. The video clearly showed a single badger spending the night moving a ton of earth to completely enter the cow. To make things better, right next to the calf, the audacious animal built himself a comfortable new burrow. The badger did not leave this subterranean VIP restaurant for a good 2 months, lazily gorging himself on the preserved remains until they ran out. Even though the American badger is a dedicated misanthrope who despises everyone, including his own kind, the wild prairie features one highly bizarre example of cooperation. Badgers have managed to form an alliance with coyotes. Of course, there is no selfless friendship or hugging involved. This is strictly business and a highly pragmatic symbiosis. Their syndicate works through a brilliant division of labor. First, the long-legged, swift coyote spots a gopher in the open and gives chase. The panicked rodent dives at full speed into the nearest burrow, where the coyote's long limbs can no longer reach him. That is when the badger confidently strolls onto the scene. He approaches the hole and begins rapidly tearing up the earth with his 7-centimeter claws. If the gopher chooses to stay inside, it goes straight into the badger's teeth. If the rodent, hearing the terrifying thunder of the badger's excavation, dashes out through an emergency exit, the waiting coyote immediately snatches it up. In the end, both predators win, fully aware of the benefits of this criminal duo. Even if, the moment lunch ends, the badger starts snarling, hissing, and chasing his long-legged partner off his turf. When winter arrives, the American badger does not undergo true hibernation. His deep 3-meter dens preserve natural warmth, shielding him from freezing prairie winds. However, his pace of life slows significantly. To avoid burning precious energy, during the coldest days, the beast enters a state of torpor, briefly shutting down his system, lowering his body temperature, and slowing his heart rate. By winter, badgers bulk up significantly, turning into a solid fat ball of pure rage. Paradoxically, a well-fed badger looks visibly cuter and kinder, though testing that kindness in person remains a terrible idea. Sometimes, arrogant foxes or coyotes try to occupy a badger's prime real estate, assuming the owner is frozen or weak. These hostile takeover attempts always end the exact same way. The old man immediately wakes up and throws the uninvited guests out by their ears. Every single time, this eviction involves severe bodily harm, and for a few exceptionally stubborn squatters, it ends in death. You do not play games with this guy, regardless of the season. As you know, badgers do not get along with one another either. The only time of year these sullen creatures can physically tolerate the presence of their own species is the brief mating season. But do not expect romance, gentle grooming, or serenades under the moon. Instead of foreplay, American badgers engage in a brutal, uncompromising fight that looks exactly like a high-stakes MMA sparring match. In the middle of summer, the male badger leaves his fortified territory to wander through the home ranges of local females. When this suitor goes on a date, no obstacle can stop him. Driven by instinct, he marches straight across cliffs, ravines, and swims across deep, raging rivers. He finds a female, the rough sparring ritual takes place, but then the most fascinating part begins. The truth is, female badgers absolutely despise being pregnant. They hate it so much that their bodies have learned to pause the development of the embryo for up to 5 full months. This strange, biologically unique phenomenon is called embryonic diapause, a trait common to many members of the chaotic mustelid family. The evolutionary logic behind this trick is to give birth as late as possible. Once the harsh winter recedes, spring arrives, and food becomes abundant. Conceived in the height of summer, the babies only begin actual development in December, right when badgers retreat to their winter dens. Consequently, in February, within the deepest and most secure burrow, 5 to 6 tiny, blind, and completely hairless cubs are born. But their childhood is strictly Spartan. They grow and gain independence incredibly fast. The mother badger is physically incapable of tolerating a screaming, greedy, arrogant crowd in her private domain for long. The moment the cubs reach 2 months of age, these young Spartans are kicked out into the real world. They leave the maternal home forever to claim their own territories and start terrorizing local gophers on their own. Naturally, for such an unpretentious, near-omnivorous, armored subterranean creature, coexistence with human civilization did not pose an immediate existential threat for a long time. Yes, the ancient soils of the prairies are heavily plowed for agriculture, and yes, badgers are occasionally hunted for their valuable fat and tough pelts. But these animals adapt beautifully, managing to survive where other species have long since thrown up their paws and gone extinct. Yet, this coin has a dark side. In certain regions, the relationship between this reclusive, aggressive animal and uncompromising humans is deteriorating. Badgers despise it when their boundaries are crossed, and farmers hate finding 3-meter anti-tank-style ditches dug across their crops by the claws of this furry excavator. Because of this, local populations in several states are starting to decline rapidly. Nonetheless, the American badger remains an insane, terrifying, yet immensely cool, charismatic, and beneficial beast. This fluffy little package, packed to the brim with hatred for the world, single-handedly saves the fragile ecosystem of the American prairies from an endless, multi-million-strong tide of rodents that could easily devour every crop in sight. So, if you ever spot this guy in the wild, just give him a polite nod, say, "Thank you for your service, your Badger Majesty," and run for your life before he decides to activate his 7-centimeter arguments.